Hi YouTube, thank you so much for watching my breastfeeding and pumping class. So I know that having a baby can be really exciting, but also kind of overwhelming at times, especially with all the information coming in. So I just want to let you know that you are not alone. I am here. I just want to provide you with all the information that you need. And of course, you can always contact me if you have questions. So this is actually going to be a 4-part series, my breastfeeding and pumping course. You can see all 4 parts on my YouTube channel, and you can also follow at mommydidyouknow.com to have the exact online course as well as my ebook. So without further ado, let's begin.
Mommy, did you know?
So I'm really excited about this first class. It's going to be an introduction into breastfeeding. We're going to learn about the benefits of breastfeeding, how to get ready for your breastfeeding sessions, as well as just what to expect. And it will make your life a whole lot easier when your baby comes. So if you can just do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right down there, it's also on the video. It's just a great way to help grow my channel, that we can help get these resources to those around. The first thing that we want to talk about today is frequent and effective breastfeeding. Now the benefits of breastfeeding are just numerous. If you look to the Academy of Pediatrics, they have a whole list of them and they're fantastic. They protect against a whole bunch of diseases. Your breast milk actually has antibodies. It kind of works like an antibiotic. It's fantastic, and it coats the GI system, it coats your stomach, it helps regulate the sugars, it regulates the weight, maintains weight. Babies that have breast milk in their system, they also in the future has a less chance of having diabetes 1 and 2, and even less jaundice as well. If babies are feeding effectively, it will help with their bilirubin levels, which is that yellowing of the skin. Have you ever heard, your grandma goes, hey, put the baby under the sun so that it'll get the yellow out? That basically is jaundice. And by having frequent and effective breastfeeding sessions and frequent feedings, we can help to make sure that our babies don't have that yellowing of the skin, because if it gets too bad too fast, it can actually cause brain damage. So that's why jaundice is very important. Make sure those levels are low. You want to maintain frequent feeds. About when your baby's born, you'll usually feed about every 2 to 3 hours for about sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes you want a steak and sometimes you want a salad. It's the same thing with your baby. Sometimes they're on and they're cluster feeding and they feel like they're never coming off, and other times they're on for 5 minutes and then they just conk out. But it's really important to know in the beginning that babies are very sleepy. So the first hour is kind of the active phase. It's their golden hour. They're gonna be all over you. That's a perfect time to do your skin to skin, your breastfeeding. But then after that, they're gonna kind of knock out for the next 12 to 24 hours. That's normal for babies to be sleepy, but you wanna keep waking them up for their feeding sessions to have those frequent feedings. And the first few days are more practice anyways. I mean, it's really hard to get that suck, swallow reflexes down, especially boys. If you think about it, boys are actually kind of hard at multitasking. I don't know about you if you noticed that, but I mean, to have to suck and swallow and breathe and learn about the world is a lot going on for a newborn baby. So we just have to help the situation, help our babies out, and I hope that being well informed, it will definitely help your progress. I'm sure you're wondering, how do I get ready for my breastfeeding sessions? Number 1, you have to make sure that you have a calm, inviting environment for your baby to start breastfeeding. You want to try to take down all the stimulations, extra stimulations, put the baby skin to skin. You can put on some calm music if you want, and just kind of have positive thinking. That actually kind of goes into my step number 2, but step number 2 is positive thinking. So many times moms, they'll grab their baby and they'll put their baby to the breast, and then all of a sudden they start shaking their head like, no, I can't do this. You can do this. You are a strong woman, and you just have to have positive thoughts. You will be surprised the power that your mind has on your body. And then number 3 is you have to pay attention to your baby's feeding cues. A lot of people, they'll wait for the baby to start crying actually before feeding their baby, but you actually want to listen to those early feeding cues, such as you'll start seeing the baby with their REM eye sleep, when all of a sudden you'll start seeing their eyes moving back and forth. You'll start seeing their hands moving. You'll start seeing all those lip sucking. Those are all early feeding cues. You want to start feeding at those early cues, because if you wait too long when your baby's already aggravated and crying, you actually have to calm them down before you're able to breastfeed. So it actually takes longer and it aggravates the baby more. And then for your baby, when you're ready for your breastfeeding session, all you really have to do, just go through this checklist. 1, check the diaper. Make sure that your baby's diaper is clean. If you put the baby on with a dirty diaper, sometimes you'll have a harder time breastfeeding. So that's why it's really important to check that diaper of yours. You can put the baby skin to skin, take off the clothes, take off those blankets, because when you have all those blankets, the baby's really comfy. They don't really wake up as much. They're very sleepy, and then plus they're too far from you in order to get a deep latch. So especially those first few days, I know that it's kind of counterintuitive. You're like, all right, I want to breastfeed and put the baby back to sleep, but the best way to breastfeed is to take off those clothes, put the baby skin to skin, because if the baby's too far away from you, what's going to end up happening is they're going to start going giving you little breastfeeding kisses, and they're not going to be really breastfeeding you. You want to breastfeed, not nipple feed, and the best way to do that is by having a deep, effective latch and a nice suck. Now guys, for the next part of my video, I'm actually going to talk about latching and positioning. So to do that, I have my baby's little teddy bear, just because it'll kind of help you to understand and grasp what I'm talking about. So for the first step to latch your baby on, you really have to make sure that you have the correct position. Position is always tummy to tummy. No matter what position you have, if it's cross cradle, if you're trying the football position, if you're trying regular position, you always want to make sure tummy to tummy. That means if my tummy and baby's tummy are touching. So if I'm trying this one, the baby's still tummy's towards me. If I'm trying this one, the baby's tummy's still towards me. If I'm trying the cross cradle, the baby's still towards me. Even baby led, baby's tummy is still towards me. So you want to make sure the tummy is to the tummy's not facing out. So many times I'll see that where I'll come in the room and she's like, the baby's not breastfeeding. When I come in, she has the baby like this. And a lot of people do that. You want to make sure tummy is facing you, okay? Next is your alignment. The alignment, your baby's head, shoulders, and hips should all be aligned, okay? They should not be like this. Sometimes I'll see where the baby's facing up and the head's like this. That's not aligned. You want to make sure it's all aligned in one line. Then another thing that you want to do here, I'm just going to move you guys down a little bit so you can see a little bit better. The next thing that you want to do is you want to do the nose to the nipple, okay? Nose to nipple. Don't just, this cute little nose here. So you want to make sure nose to nipple, okay? So you're going to have, if I'm trying cross cradle, because that's just my favorite position, but you know, you can try whichever one you want. You're gonna have the baby's nose to your nipple. You can express a little bit of your colostrum, and then using that, you let the baby smell a little bit on the nose, and then when the baby goes ah and opens, that's when you go and let them attack, okay? Don't shove the baby into the breast, and don't shove the breast into the baby. I see people do that a lot of times. You wanna make sure you tickle the baby's nose, let the baby open, and then put the baby on. You want to make sure that the baby has a nice wide, deep latch. So that means when you're going like this, and you look at the silhouette of the mouth, it should be like it should not be an ooh. If it's an oop, it's going to be really painful for you, okay? If you latch on the baby and the baby loses the latch, or possibly the baby's not exactly latched on correctly, what you can do is simply take a clean finger, put it to break the suction, and then once you break the suction, you can take the baby off and latch the baby on again. So all you're doing is you're making sure the baby's aligned, you're making sure the baby's tummy to tummy, you do the nose to the nipple, and then when the baby latches on, you take the baby to the breast. You don't take the breast and go, take it, all right? You take the baby to the breast, and then that will help you so much. So now you're breastfeeding your baby. Hopefully your baby's as cute as my little teddy bear over here. And you want to know, how do you know if the baby's latched on correctly? How do I know if the baby's transferring milk? So the signs of a correct latch, number one, if you have nipple cracks and blisters, that means that your latch might be a little off. Soreness is normal, but if you're starting to get cracks and bleeding and blisters, that means that the baby's on the nipple. Because if your baby's on the nipple like this, you might even get compression stripes, which is basically like a line going across the nipple. If your baby is on the areola, which is the dark part, you should not be getting those compression stripes and blisters. So you want to make sure the baby's on the dark part of the breast, which is called the areola. The baby is breastfeeding, not nipple feeding. So you want to make sure the baby is on the areola, not only the nipple. Also because your receptors for milk production are actually in your areola. They're not in your nipples. Your nipples, pretty much, they'll start releasing the milk, but actually some of the milk is released around on your areola by stimulation. So when you have the baby on the breast like this, the baby's compressing on the areola, that's how you're gonna have milk transfer. And actually, even by having the baby's hand here, that actually is helping with your milk letdown as well, because that releases oxytocin. It's amazing how the body does that. So by having the baby here, skin to skin, you're releasing oxytocin, and by having the baby have a nice wide latch, you're gonna prevent nipple cracks, you're gonna prevent bleeding. Of course, soreness is normal. You know, everybody's gonna be a little sore, but if it lasts for a while and you have those cracks and bleeding, that means the baby might need to be tweaked a little bit. Number two, you want to look to see if your baby is sucking and swallowing. If your baby maybe might be sucking, but there's no swallowing going on, it's a possibility that your baby might be using you like a pacifier. You want to make sure that there's sucking and then there's also swallowing. Your suck should also have more of like a rocker motion, not like a piston. Basically, a piston motion is like a gun where it just goes psh, psh. But a rocker, you'll start seeing it's compressing and relaxing. And then you'll see that the baby's using the whole jaw, not just the lips to feed. If you look at the baby and the baby just like, you don't eat a hamburger like, you eat a hamburger, you go, it's the same thing with your baby, okay? So you wanna make sure you have a nice wide latch over the areola, not just on the nipple. And then you would just assess your baby during the feeding. After the baby is feeding, is the baby calm? Sometimes in the beginning, they'll be very, very constricted, you know, the whole hand will be very tense. But then after, towards the end of the feeding, you'll see that they'll be more calm, relaxed. Their hands will start to open as well. And then to know if your baby's feeding enough, there's pretty much 4 ways that you can tell. Number 1 is you can monitor your diapers. The first day, the first 24 hours, you won't really see as many dirty diapers. You might see 1 pee, 1 poop, and that's perfectly fine. But then as your day goes on, the first 24 hours, at least you have that. If you have more, great, but at least you have 1 pee, 1 poop. Second day, 2 and 2, 3, 3 and 3. So at least it kind of makes it a little easier. And then of course you would follow up with your pediatrician. So number 1 is you monitor the diapers. Number 2 is you see the baby's weight. Did you know it's actually normal for babies to lose weight after they are born? That's because they're losing a lot of that amniotic fluid. So sometimes my patients, they'll see me and they're like, oh, the baby's losing weight, what happened? But it just simply was that they're losing a lot of that water weight. So that's normal, your pediatrician will follow you. If it gets to the 7 to 10% level, that means we might have to look a little bit more into that. So that's diaper changes. Number 2 is the weight. Number 3 is the jaundice. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but usually they'll be doing a jaundice screening with you guys around 24 hours after the baby's birth. Sometimes they might do it a little earlier if the baby's at a higher risk for having jaundice, such as if you had jaundice in another child, or if the baby's starting to look yellow, sometimes they might do a little bit earlier. And then number 4 is just your observations. You will start to see if your baby's not eating enough. How do they seem? You will assess your baby, monitor your babies, look for those feeding cues, and then I'm really sure that these will help you a lot. So thank you so much for watching day 1 of our breastfeeding and pumping course. Now this is 4 parts, so I really hope that you subscribe and follow the other 3 parts. This is gonna be so helpful for you and your family. For the next few days, we're gonna talk about, the second one is actually going to be responsive breastfeeding, talking about feeding cues, engorgement. The 3rd day, we're going to be going around about pumping. And then the 4th day, we're going to talk about milk pumping and storage and what you should do to prepare your milk. So make sure that you subscribe, and you can also check out mommydidyouknow.com for my official online courses as well as my ebooks. And I'm sure that they will be so beneficial to you and your family.